It began with a single step, a man, a camel, and a stretch of endless horizon. Dust rose from his sandals as he crossed a world that had no borders, only connections waiting to be discovered. In his satchel was salt, in his mind was survival, and behind him trailed the first whispers of what would become humanity's greatest creation, the ancient trade routes, the invisible highways that built empires, carried ideas, and bound civilizations together long before there were maps to draw them. Trade is as old as hunger, as timeless as curiosity. Before gold and coins, before kings and kingdoms, humans traded what they had for what they needed: obsidian for grain, shells for spices, stories for survival. But somewhere along the way, simple exchange became something far greater. It became the engine of civilization itself. Imagine standing in a bustling market in Mesopotamia around 3000 BCE. The air is heavy with the scent of dates and roasted grain. Traders shout in languages from across deserts and rivers. Lapis lazuli from Afghanistan glimmers beside copper from Oman. This is not a random gathering. It's the heartbeat of the world's first global network. Every jar, bead, and cloth tells a story of journeys spanning thousands of miles. From the moment humans realized they could travel farther and faster by following the same paths, trade routes were born. They were not merely roads, they were veins pumping life into empires. One of the oldest of these arteries ran between Egypt and Nubia, the Gold Road. From deep within the African interior came gold, ivory, ebony, and incense, treasures that fueled Egypt's temples and its pharaohs' ambitions. Down the Nile, ships carried these riches north, and in return came linen, grain, and prestige. Without these routes, Egypt might have remained a valley of farmers instead of the empire of gods. Far to the east, across mountains and deserts, another path was forming: the legendary Silk Road. Though its name evokes a single thread, it was actually a web stretching from China to the Mediterranean, connecting more than 4,000 miles of mountains, steppes, and sands. It wasn't just silk that moved along this road, but secrets. Paper, gunpowder, Buddhism, and even the Black Death all found their way west through this network. Picture a Chinese merchant in the city of Chang'an during the Han Dynasty. His warehouse overflows with silk, the shimmering fabric so rare and prized in the Roman Empire that it was worth its weight in gold. By the time that silk reached Rome, it had changed hands dozens of times, through caravans, middlemen, and desert traders who risked bandits, thirst, and endless heat. And yet it kept moving, unstoppable, like an idea whose time had come. The Silk Road gave birth not only to wealth, but to wonder. It linked civilizations that never met, yet shared their genius through goods and gossip. When a Roman senator draped himself in Chinese silk, he unknowingly wore the handiwork of farmers thousands of miles away, whose existence his empire barely believed was real. But the Silk Road wasn't the only artery pulsing through ancient history. The spice routes, vast sea lanes across the Indian Ocean, carried cinnamon from Ceylon, pepper from India, cloves from the Moluccas, and frankincense from Arabia. These spices were worth more than gold and sometimes sparked wars that reshaped continents. Sailors followed the monsoon winds, knowing that a single mistake could send them to watery graves. The trade was so lucrative that entire empires rose and fell over it, from the kingdoms of Arabia to the ports of Kerala, the Swahili coast, and beyond. The ocean became a bridge rather than a barrier. Long before Europeans set sail, African, Arab, Indian, and Malay sailors were already navigating the high seas, exchanging goods and ideas across continents. If you stood in the bustling East African port of Kilwa in the 13th century, you would have seen Persian merchants unloading Chinese porcelain, Indian cloth, and Arabian incense. In return, African traders sent out gold, ivory, and slaves. Kilwa was not an isolated city. It was a jewel in a chain of trade stretching from China to Mozambique. Trade, in its essence, is connection, and wherever goods moved, so too did faith, language, and power. Along the Silk Road rode not only merchants, but monks and missionaries. Buddhism spread from India into China and Japan through these same mountain passes. Centuries later, Islam followed the same routes, carried by merchants rather than armies, shaping cultures from Mali to Indonesia. The Roman Empire itself was built on trade. Its roads, the famous viae, were not just for soldiers, but for commerce. All roads lead to Rome, they said, and they meant it literally. The empire's might was measured not just by its armies, but by its ability to move goods and ideas. Roman glassware found its way to India, while Indian spices flavored Roman feasts. The empire's currency, stamped with the faces of emperors, circulated from the Sahara to the British Isles, the first global brand. But trade could also destroy. The same routes that brought silk and spices could carry something far more lethal. In the 14th century, the Black Death spread along these very highways, wiping out nearly half of Europe's population. The caravans that once brought prosperity now carried death. Yet, when the plague finally passed, trade revived once more, proving that human connection, even in tragedy, cannot be silenced for long. Some trade routes were carved not through deserts or seas, but through ingenuity. The Amber Road linked the Baltic to the Mediterranean, carrying fossilized resin prized for jewelry. The salt roads stretched across Africa, where salt was so precious it was traded ounce for ounce with gold. Entire kingdoms, like Mali and Ghana, were built on its trade. In the markets of Timbuktu, slabs of salt fetched fortunes, not because of their rarity, but because salt was life itself in a world without refrigeration. And then there was the Trans-Saharan route, a labyrinth of sand that connected West Africa to the Mediterranean world. Caravans of thousands of camels trudged through blistering heat, guided by stars and survival. Gold from the Niger Valley, ivory from the forests, and slaves from inland Africa crossed the Sahara to reach markets in North Africa and beyond. It was through these same routes that Mansa Musa, the ruler of Mali, made his legendary pilgrimage to Mecca in the 14th century, so rich that his caravan's gold devalued entire economies along the way. Every empire that mastered trade mastered power. The Phoenicians sailed the Mediterranean with ships of cedar, spreading their alphabet as far as Spain. The Persians built the Royal Road, a marvel of engineering connecting Sardis to Susa, over 2,700 kilometers long, guarded and maintained for swift travel. A letter could travel from one end of the empire to the other in days, not months. In China, the Tang and Song dynasties turned trade into an art form. Paper money, magnetic compasses, and shipbuilding innovations transformed commerce forever. The world's first true global city, Chang'an, buzzed with merchants from Persia, Arabia, and India. It was a melting pot centuries before the word existed. Yet for all its glory, the age of overland trade would eventually give way to a new power, the ocean. When European explorers began navigating around Africa in the 15th century, the world's trade routes were redrawn. The old highways of sand and silk gave way to the age of sail, and empires like Portugal, Spain, and later Britain rose to dominance by controlling sea lanes instead of deserts. But history never erases, it transforms. Beneath modern highways and shipping routes still lie the footprints of those first merchants. The old paths may be forgotten, but their impact is not. The very idea of globalization, of connected economies and shared cultures, was born not in boardrooms or on maps, but on dusty trails walked by traders thousands of years ago. Think of it this way. Every time you use your phone, a device made of materials from Africa, assembled in Asia, and sold in America, you're walking the same metaphorical paths those ancient traders once took. We are all, in some way, still traveling the trade routes of history. The highways that built empires didn't just shape the world, they made it. They turned isolation into interaction, survival into civilization, and curiosity into connection. They wove the human story into a single, continuous thread stretching from the dawn of time to the digital age. Long before planes, trains, and cargo ships, the world was already global, bound together by the courage of merchants, the patience of travelers, and the simple human desire to reach out beyond the horizon. And though the caravans have vanished, and the sails have fallen silent, those ancient highways still run through us all, unseen, but eternal. Because wherever people have something to share, and someone willing to journey for it, a trade route is born again. Every empire may rise and fall, but the desire to connect, to trade, to explore, to understand, that is eternal. The merchants of old may be gone, but their roads still run through our stories, our cultures, and the very things we hold in our hands today. If this journey through the highways of history stirred your imagination, don't let it stop here. Subscribe, share, and walk with us down the forgotten paths of the past, where every road leads to discovery and every story reminds us how deeply connected we've always been. Because history isn't just behind us, it's the map of who we are, and the more we explore it, the clearer our destination becomes.